Okay, we're live. So this is our first live stream with This is the Bed. Yesterday we posted our first video, got 51 views. How you feeling about that, Tanner?
I mean, it's good we were talking earlier. I've put out videos that get like 15 in the span of 5 years, and so 51's 51 something to smile about. Uh, Doing it for the love gives me a chance every morning and night to put in some research into a sport I love, and so at the end of the day, I'm happy.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Usually I'd get, 20, 30 views, but that's if I share it on my personal Facebook. But I didn't do any of that. So it seems like people are searching for this stuff. And yeah, today we're going to do a little Big 12 preview. We kind of each, what I've been thinking about this for the past few days, and really there's like a top 5, 6 teams in my mind, and then there's kind of everybody else, and I think it's gonna kinda be just whoever happens to click or perform better will kinda finish in the top half, and, I mean, after those 5, there's kind of like 5 good teams, then there's probably 4 or 5 kinda bottom teams, and, we'll talk a little bit about that. I have a little slide with our top 5 picks, but then we'll kind of talk about where we got BYU as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, I'm gonna pull this slide up, and then I want you to kind of go through. Maybe we go 5 to 1, and
Okay,
just kind of why you have them there in that spot. So we'll start with
bring
you
them
and
all
pull
up.
this up.
Okay, let me get my notes ready.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
starting for you with Baylor.
I've got Baylor in there. From what I saw from them last year playing BYU, and even the year before that, what BYU's had the opportunity to play them at Baylor and at home, and so solid football program in the Big 12. My notes for Baylor, you've got Blake Sharpen coming back in the QB position. Um, they finished sixth last season in the Big 12.
Yeah, and
With
I felt like they lost some games they shouldn't have last year.
Yeah,
They did lose to BYU. Like speaking of
yes,
BYU in that second week of the season. But yeah, their quarterback's coming back, and he was a pretty solid player.
yeah, and they won some big games. You know, they had the win over Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And I know uh, we've been putting it out that Kansas is on the rise, a more respectable team. And so that's why I got Baylor in there. I can see them winning quite a few of these conference games and finding their way into the top 5, if not maybe into the top 4 if I push TCU down, which leads me into TCU. I know there's quite a few people that aren't as high on TCU. They made that playoff run, and I know they lose a lot of talent in the quarterback position, receivers. Um, but I don't think that takes away from what a program can do again. You look at teams, and TCU is no Alabama or Georgia, but those teams have a system, and they, turn over their players. New players come and they put it into place. Now, does TCU have that system put into place? That's debatable. But I don't see him going from a top team to all of a sudden being out of that top 5. So that's why I have TCU in that 4
Yeah,
position.
and I'll talk about TCU a little bit since I have them number
Yeah,
5.
yeah, for sure.
So I don't have Baylor in there, but I do think they're kind of in that 6 or 7 spot for me. So they're just barely out of top 5. TCU, they brought in a lot of Poro guys. So I was going to put this on the slide, I forgot, but their win total is projected at 7.5. And for me, I think that's low. I think they win at least 8 games this year. And I'm probably taking that over on their wins. 7.5 just seems low coming off last year. They did win a couple games they shouldn't have last year. They lost to Kansas State in the championship game, but they still got into the playoffs and made it to the national championship. And I think they're going to still be good enough to be in the top 5. They lost Quentin Johnson, star receiver. He got drafted, and same with Max Duggan. And I think the only thing is that a question mark is their defense. Can they be good enough to let the offense click? They might lose some games early. They do play Colorado week 1, and we're going to talk about that on the next episode. But that's not necessarily an easy matchup. But I do have them number 5.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you've said. Third, spot is Texas. Um, as I was doing research, listening to other podcasts and what people have to say, there's a lot of people that do not enjoy Texas football. A lot of horns down. We've got a buddy that throws up that horns down all the time. Big Texas A&M fan. But one thing that was interesting is that there's a lot of people, and I feel the same way. For the longest time, you hear Texas is back. They're back. They're back. But they haven't showed it with even just winning the Big 12. They don't have that on their resume in the last, I can't remember how many years, but they've kind of pushed some other teams around in the Big 12, and this year I've got them in that third spot simply because I think they win their first two games before Alabama. I think people really start to rally, and then personally, I think Alabama puts the hurting on them. If they do end up beating Alabama, then I could see their season going completely different. But I see it being that loss to Alabama and then some other Big 12 teams taking their last shot at Texas and sending them out. So that third place position is where I have them. Simply looking at some of the games, I see some of these teams shining and sending them out. So
yeah, and I'll get to Texas later, but I'm on the hype train for Texas for sure. But I think we'll be here after week 2, after that Alabama game, and we'll have a lot better idea about who Texas is this year.
Yes.
Okay, let's get to your number 2.
Texas Tech. Texas. I've always said I've got something in my heart for Texas Tech. Watching them, and people have them as a dark horse for the national championship. I'm not taking them that far. Winning a Big 12, I can see that. I can see that with their offense, and just being a team that I see it. Kansas State, Texas Tech in the championship, and we'll get to Kansas State, how good I see them. But Texas Tech is a great program that I see beating quite a few in the Big 12 if they get hot. So yeah, that's what I got.
I like Texas Tech as well. I have them third. Okay, getting up to your number 1, Kansas State.
My final one, Kansas
Wildcats.
State. Yes, and looking at Kansas State, you got Will Howard returning, stud in that QB position. No Deuce Vaughn, which is tough. I mean, the guy was an animal. But the offensive line, this was interesting. Looking at their offensive line, you got Cooper Beebe and Hayden Gillum coming back. And I saw some stuff about a nickname, the Beef or something. Beef is what they call their O-line. And I just like them to come out and be that top team. Returning, a big indicator of how a team will do is if they can get it done on the offensive line, and to bring back these two caliber of players onto the offensive line and have that quarterback back there. I think it's a recipe for success that I think Kansas State can really capitalize on and take that Big 12 championship.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Kansas State's going to be solid. I'll kind of run through my list, and we'll get to Kansas State because I have them number 2. You have them number 1. I agree with a lot of the points you made about them, but kind of getting to my list, we talked about TCU coming in 5th, but in 4th place, and this is a team you didn't put on your top 5, Oklahoma. I think last year they were 6 and 7, kind of a disappointing year. But with that said, they have a lot of talent that's coming back. Last year was a little disappointing, but their offense isn't an issue. They averaged a little over 37 points per game last season, which is just insane. And I think their defense is going to struggle. I'd probably lose them some games. Not saying that they're going to be perfect, but I think they're at least getting that 8 to 9 win range. Starting QB's back, and their win total is actually at 9.5 this year. And I'm actually going to take the under on that probably, because I think they're an 8 or 9 win team, but I think they're still in that top 5 teams from the Big 12.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at Oklahoma. They went 3-6 in the conference, and in my opinion, when I look at them, there's still a lot of question marks around their coach Venable, if he is at that caliber to put together a high functioning team. And so, yeah, it's interesting you got them up there. I had them just below kind of Baylor in that area with Oklahoma State. Uh, they got to prove it to me. They got to prove it. And so, but I agree with what you say with their offense, and it'll be nice to get some games out this season, so then we can start looking at what teams really are, because this preseason, not preseason, but this before the season starts stuff, it's all talk, right? Because
Yeah, it is.
you got spring, but without so
It's,
so you
it's
got Texas Tech next, you said?
yeah, Texas Tech. Like I agree with a lot of your points. I think they fight. I think they're creative. I think they're gonna possibly ruin somebody's season. I think if any team has a chance to ruin Texas's season, they actually match up in the last game of the season. Um, and I think Texas Tech has that chance to kind of spoil Texas's season. Maybe it's whoever wins that game gets into the Big 12 championship game to play Kansas State. It's kind of what I'm seeing. And I think that Texas is just strong enough to kind of pull that edge, but I think that it's actually going to be really close between the two. They have a lot of talent. Um, Pretty much their entire offense is back, if from what I understand. And so just bringing those many guys back is it's gonna be scary what they can do. Just as long as they can stay disciplined, um, they're gonna scare some good teams, like I mentioned, like Texas, like those teams they play. They're never gonna feel safe against Texas Tech. But if you watch the BYU season preview, that's actually where I had BYU beating Texas Tech, and that's the game I think that kind of ruined Texas Tech's season as well. And
It
so
was a loss to the
that was
Cougars,
right
baby.
there. But they have tough games. They do play Oregon at home, I believe, the second week of the season. So not only does Texas play Alabama, but we have the Oregon Texas Tech matchup as well. So we'll
Yeah.
know if they win that game against Oregon, that's going to be pretty big for them going into conference play.
I've forgotten on that one. Is that one at Oregon, or is that one?
I think I I think it's Texas Tech home game.
Oh, okay.
Let me look this up real quick.
So I was gonna say that's you got Texas going to
Yeah,
Tuscaloosa,
so
which is tough, and then if you got Texas Tech,
Oregon's going to Lubbock, so they're
okay,
they're playing in Texas.
okay, because I was gonna say not looking good for the Big 12 if they have to go to Oregon and play.
Yeah,
That's tough. I got to go to the game where BYU played Oregon, and the fans they show up, and it's
yeah.
a tough place. It's a tough place to win. So that'll be good for Texas Tech. They can pull it out at home.
Oh yeah, I definitely think they can win that game. And if they don't, then they might not be as good as we thought.
Yeah.
Um, Kansas State, you talked a lot about them. They're your number one pick. It's hard to put them two, but I just don't think they go back to back in the conference championships. And I just, yeah, their win total is at 8.5, and I actually think they go over that. I think they have 9 or 10 wins this year. That's actually a pretty good line that I like, 8.5. It's hard to say that it's going to be less than 8.5. So yeah, like you said, Will Howard, he's solid. They do have a tricky start to the season. I mean, they go to Troy, they go to Missouri, so there's some games there they can lose. But if they're the team we think they are, then they're going to win those games,
Oh yeah.
and they're going to win a lot of games this year.
Yeah.
They are the hype, but they, like you said, they have the big O line back, all 5 offensive linemen coming back. So I think that's one of the key pieces to their success this year. And then Texas, who I've been waiting to talk about. I think there's a lot of hype around them. You mentioned that in the BYU preview, but I think they have a plan, and this is kind of my theory about Texas here. Tell me what you think, but we know this is their last season in the Big 12. They're moving on to the SEC next season, but I think their plan is to dominate the Big 12 this year, take that energy, their recruits, build their program, and their plan is to be a top 3 team in SEC, I think. That's who they want to be. Will they do it? What do you think? Do you think Texas can pull it off? That's my theory, though, that they're building up their program. They have Archie Manning waiting to come in. He's doesn't have to start this year, but he's the next guy up. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's sink or swim, right? Whether they like it or not, next year it's the SEC, and you gotta learn quick, right? Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know with Texas. I was listening to a podcast where, and I agreed with them. They were talking, if people think Texas is going to win the Big 12, then you might as well go and put your money on them to make the college playoff. They were saying there's so much that could go wrong for them in the Big 12 that if you are really set on that Texas team, put them in the playoff. I'm interested to see how you feel. Where do you see Texas with them winning the Big 12? Do you see them in the playoff? Is that the caliber of team that you're seeing from Texas?
I'm this far in, so I think I'm all in on Texas this year. So I think I do have them in the playoff spot coming out of the Big 12. Here's what I think. I think if they have one loss, I think they're in the playoff, but that loss has to be Alabama or Kansas State. I think it's just if it's either of those, I think they have a chance to still be in the playoff. But I think 2 losses is too many, but I do see them possibly losing that game against Alabama, but it being a close one. I mean, last year Alabama went to Texas and almost won that game. Quinn Ewers, their QB, got hurt during that game, and Bryce Young led a fourth quarter comeback. Pretty special, but I think they're kind of seeking revenge. If they can win that game at Alabama, then yeah, the hype train keeps going for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the end if they do lose that game. So, yeah, I have them in the playoff.
No, definitely not for Texas. They could lose that Alabama game, run the table, and be in – because I think the Big 12 is getting more of that respect of those teams now that we've seen TCU up there, Oklahoma, and with the talk of Texas Tech, even Kansas State. I don't see them dropping out simply because of a loss in the Big 12 if they do beat Alabama. But I think you are right about that one loss. There's going to be too many up there at the top. We see teams like Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, who are one-loss teams. So Texas would have to be that one loss or that undefeated to definitely get in there.
Oh, for sure. I just think Texas is strong. Their offense is strong. Defense is underrated. And if all goes well and they play like they should, they have the talent, they should be that top team from the Big 12. So with this said, who's your champion pick? Let's say you got 2 teams in the championship. Who's playing and who comes out on top and gets to go to that big New Year's 6 game?
Yeah, I'm rolling with Kansas State. I'm rolling with them. I'm going back to back, baby. I've got to see their odds. If you could pull it up quick, I'm trying to remember what their odds were for a Big 12 championship. I believe they were in the third.
Here you go. Let me just share this screen real quick.
Okay.
We're done with this.
Because I know Texas last I saw was like an even 100. And then followed by Oklahoma. And I wanted to say they may have been in that third. Let's see. There it is, baby. So we're looking at what? 8. If you shop around, is that an 800?
Yeah. See the best. Yeah. 700 plus 700.
700.
Is your best for the Big 12 winner. See Texas.
That's not a bad.
Yeah. Texas at plus 100. I'm not probably taking those odds. I just don't know if it's the juices there, but the one I do like is Texas Tech here. 1,100. It's tempting.
Yeah. Anytime you see those ones, I'm not seeing any of that. Sprinkle some money on it on any other team. Really, it stops for me at the Texas Tech, and I think
Yeah,
the odds show that with the jump, but I don't know. Yeah, there's just no. I don't even play around with that stuff. It's just free
it's
money to
long
the
shot
books.
stuff, right?
It's just free
Yeah,
money to the books. You just place it and kind of wave bye bye. So
yeah, definitely. So I got Texas as my Big 12 winner. Probably not playing that just plus 100 odds, but I
yeah,
think they're going to be strong this year, and I think it's a Texas Kansas State championship game, and I think Texas wins it, and gets to the playoff maybe. So with that said, one last thing, where do we have BYU finishing this year? What place and kind of what's your reasoning behind it? We talked about them in the season preview, so it should be kind of not too much of a surprise where we both have them, but where do you have them, Tanner?
yeah. So in my research, I've listened to a lot of the Locked On of all of the different schools: Texas Tech, Texas. Um, in the Texas one, they're just pumping up BYU, and so I got to go with what I picked. I'm not gonna join the hype train of BYU. I can't get my hopes up. I just can't do it. And so I have them, let's see, in like probably 11th place. I'm not putting them bottom. You know, I see a lot I see other teams that are down in that bottom spot, and I don't see them higher than that. I'm interested to see where you're putting BYU.
Yeah, so I had them from our record prediction 3 and 6 in the conference. So that's going to put them in. So let's see. I think West Virginia finishes last. Just going through real quick. Then we got Houston, Cincinnati, and then I believe yeah. So I have them at 10 because I think Iowa State is going to finish below BYU. I don't know why this didn't occur to me yesterday, but they've lost a lot of players due to some gambling, which is ironic because this is
Yes.
a betting show. But they've lost a
Yeah.
few players to illegal gambling betting scandals there. So I think their culture is taking a hit, and I just think it's going to be hard for them to kind of win those games we might have thought they would have won. So yeah, I have BYU finishing in 10th place. So not too different from you,
No. Yeah.
but I've heard them be put as high as 6, which shocked me. I think that's
Uh,
optimistic.
I hate it so much hearing the outside talk of BYU, and or kind. I, I've I've said it myself. It's a kind of a spoiled football program. It gets a lot of national attention. They put together winning seasons, but I just want more. I want more from BYU, and I know that's sometimes greedy to say, but I'd love to see them. Even just 8 wins, 9 wins consistently, getting on that tier. But then again, you reach that and you're never happy. Look at Alabama fans saying a one-loss season is a waste.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping for something, but yeah, that 10th, 11th place I think is a safe so you don't put your foot in your mouth of being the BYU fans that put them. Maybe we're a third in the Big 12, or maybe
Yeah.
we're going to win it all. The talk you
I
hear, but
I listened to another YouTuber. He says hype makes you stupid
yeah,
because you put your blinders on, you get so hyped about something, and then most of the time it leads to disappointment. So me and you, we're just trying to temper our expectations.
yes,
And
absolutely,
if they finish ninth or eighth or even seventh, then we're thrilled
yep.
because we didn't expect it. But if we expected them to finish in the top 5 and they finish 10th, we're super disappointed.
Yeah, too many times they get that taste of success. It's Baylor last year. It's a win against Baylor, and you just feel on top of the world, and then you get your you just get rocked by
Yeah.
Oregon, and then you kind of have to wake up. And we've seen it with not only BYU football but BYU basketball. We need some consistency, like the women's soccer team that plays big games, wins big games, and climbs the
Volleyball
rank.
team
You know
too.
what I mean? Like, I'd love to switch those sports. I'll take
Yeah,
the football team and have the women's team kind of struggle with the showing up for big games. So
yeah. So that kind of concludes. Any other thoughts about these Big 12 standings? And we had our top five. We'll have to see how it kind of plays out this year. Maybe we'll do a mid-season relook at it when we have a better idea who these teams are. But any last thoughts about standings?
no, I think we covered it. I'm excited for our next episode, diving into some of those teams playing their first game. Taking, I know you've talked about the win totals and stuff. Some bets to take. Once we start diving into these spreads, over unders, we're going to see a lot more of what a better on the Big 12 can try to look into, and what's a good play and what's not, and so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, we're going to kind of keep track of our record throughout the season and see who's the better, right?
Yeah, the better better for Brother Brigham.
Yeah,
the 4 B's.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up this episode, but I think we're going to record another here soon, and that should be coming out any minute. So,
perfect. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, everybody should subscribe and like the video because we want to beat 51 views.
Yeah, 61. We're going for 10 more.
Yeah.
10 more, baby.
Sweet. Okay, we'll see you on the next one.
See you later.